There was a faint smell of something expensive lingering in the air. Perfume, maybe. Not the kind she used to wear back when we still cared about each other's preferences. This one was unfamiliar. Sharper, like she was trying to mask something instead of highlight it. I stood in the foyer for a few seconds longer than usual, trying to place it. That scent wasn't meant to be left behind. It was a trail, not a memory. The house was quiet, but it wasn't peaceful. The kind of silence that creeps under your skin and rearranges your thoughts into patterns you didn't expect. I dropped my keys onto the console table like always, but they sounded too loud this time. Everything felt slightly off, as if the furniture had shifted half an inch in the night. I hadn't planned on coming home early. The meeting downtown got canceled last minute, and I figured I'd surprise her with takeout from that Thai place she pretended not to love. I still remember the first time I caught her sneaking leftover pad Thai from the fridge in her robe, pretending she was just rearranging things. That was before things turned into this, whatever this is now. I didn't call her on the way home. I didn't text. I didn't think I needed to. That's the thing that stings now. The assumption that you're safe, that your place in someone's life is fixed like drywall behind the paint. You don't check on drywall. You don't expect it to rot. But that smell, and the fact that the living room lights were dimmed, not off, not on, just dimmed. That's not something she ever did. She either wanted daylight or pitch black nothing. This halfway glow made the room look staged, like someone had pressed pause on a scene they didn't want anyone else to finish watching. I started walking down the hallway toward the bedroom, more out of instinct than suspicion. My shoes sank slightly into the runner rug she insisted we buy from that overpriced boutique in Boulder. She said it tied the space together. I thought it looked like a hotel corridor, but I didn't fight her on it. Some battles just don't seem worth it until you realize they were all connected. The door to our room was half closed. Not fully shut, not wide open. That exact awkward angle where you know something's happening on the other side that wasn't meant for you. I should have turned around. I should have walked out, taken a walk, pretended I forgot my wallet and bought myself 10 more minutes of ignorance. But I didn't. I pushed it open with a single finger, quietly, no drama, no force. Just enough. She was there. With him. I didn't know him. Tall. Buzzed hair. Shirtless. Her back was to me, but I knew that curve, that arch in her spine when she laughed. And she was laughing. Not giggling, not embarrassed. Laughing like they just shared some hilarious inside joke. Like this was normal. Like I wasn't real. I didn't say anything at first. Just stood there in the doorway like I'd wandered into the wrong house. My heart wasn't racing. It wasn't even beating hard. It was just there, frozen in my chest like a paperweight. Then she saw me. The moment her eyes landed on me, she didn't scream. She didn't gasp. She just blinked and let out this sigh. Like I was an inconvenience. Like I'd interrupted a dinner reservation or called her during a manicure. "Oh," she said, pulling a throw blanket across her lap like that changed anything. "You're home early." She didn't even sound surprised. Not really. That's what gutted me. There wasn't a single crack in her voice. Not even a flinch. It was like I'd walked into a grocery store she was shopping in. Not our bedroom, not our life. I still hadn't said a word. He looked over at me like I was a waiter bringing the check too soon. Not defensive, just bored. Like he'd been through this before and knew it wouldn't get violent. His eyes scanned me, judged me, then dropped back to her, as if I'd already lost the right to be looked at twice. "I told you I had the house this weekend," she said, and that was it. That's when I realized this wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a drunken lapse or some impulsive regret waiting to be apologized for. It was planned, arranged, expected. She'd carved out a space in our lives and handed it to him like a gift. Still standing there, I said the only thing my brain could form. "You didn't even lock the front door." She smiled. Actually smiled. "Why would I? You never come home early." She got up, slowly, deliberately, not ashamed, not rushing, just adjusting the blanket around herself like she was lounging in a spa. The man, her guest, leaned back on his elbows like he was watching a documentary that had just gotten slightly more interesting. I wasn't frozen anymore. Something broke in me, but not the way I expected. I didn't yell. I didn't slam anything. There was no burst of rage. It was colder than that, like I had stepped into a different body, a version of myself that had detached from the rules of being her husband. "You planned this," I said, more curious than angry. Didn't you? She tilted her head at me, the way people do when they're trying to figure out if the other person is being dense or dramatic. I told you I was going to Aspen, she said. That's not a lie. I just didn't specify which Aspen. I stared at her, confused. She nodded toward the man. His name is Aspen. He gave a smug little shrug, like this was all a game and he was winning. I think he expected me to swing at him, but I wasn't playing his game. I wasn't even in the same universe as him at that moment. How long? I asked. Her eyes flicked toward the floor, but only briefly. 3 months, give or take. You know, if you were really paying attention, you would have figured it out by now. That's when the anger finally started to crawl up my spine. Slow and sharp. She wasn't just cheating. She was mocking me for not catching her sooner. She wanted me to feel stupid. And it was working. He stood up and stretched, like he was waking from a nap. The confidence in his movements was unbearable. I could see a tattoo along his side, some abstract line work that looked like it meant something stupid and deep. I wanted to laugh. I almost did. But instead, I turned back to her. So what was the plan? I asked. I come home, find you like this, and what, just leave? Walk out like a polite guest? She didn't answer. She just started picking up her clothes one piece at a time, like I wasn't standing there, like I wasn't part of the story anymore. That was when I walked to the closet. She froze finally, not out of fear. I could see it in her face, but irritation, like she thought I might start tossing her things into a suitcase or break something expensive. But I didn't. I reached up to the top shelf where we kept the fireproof lockbox. Inside were our passports, a few pieces of inherited jewelry from her grandmother, and a memory card. A tiny SD card. That's what I was looking for. Her face changed when I pulled it out. Just slightly. Just enough. What's that? She asked. I didn't answer. Mike, what is that? Still nothing. Aspen took a step forward, but I held up a hand. I didn't yell. I didn't threaten. I just said one thing. This was in the nanny cam. The one you told me you threw away when we stopped fostering. The air dropped out of the room like oxygen had been sucked out. You went through the footage? She asked, for the first time actually sounding concerned. No, I said. Not yet, but I'm going to. She took a step toward me. Fast now, the fake calm cracking in her voice. Mike, give it to me. I slipped it into my pocket and walked out of the room. Past her. Past him. Past the wreckage of our life, and straight to the garage. She followed me halfway down the hall. Don't do something dramatic, she said. But it didn't sound like a plea. It sounded like a warning. I turned at the door. This isn't dramatic. You haven't seen dramatic yet. Then I left. But I didn't go far. I had a plan of my own. I didn't drive far. Just enough to get off the street, out of the line of sight. Parked 3 blocks away in the lot behind a 24-hour laundromat. Left the engine running. My hands were steady now, which surprised me. Everything inside me had gone dead silent, like the part of my brain that usually screamed during chaos had decided to just observe. I plugged the SD card into my laptop. Took a minute for the files to load. No password. No encryption. She was bold or maybe just careless. The folders were dated. 6 weeks worth of video. Each labeled by room. Kitchen cam, back hall, master bedroom. My stomach turned when I clicked that last one. But I made myself watch. Not all of it. Just enough. Enough to see that this wasn't a fling. It was a routine. Every Friday, like clockwork, between 6:45 and 9:30. Different men sometimes. Not always Aspen. Different clothes. Different tones. Always her. Always composed. Like she was giving a performance sheet perfected. No affection. Just satisfaction. Control. And then something else. There was one video 2 weeks ago where she stood alone in the room talking on speakerphone. She thought no one was listening. Her voice was cold. Efficient. The kind of tone you use when ordering someone to do something they don't want to. Yes, he still thinks I'm in therapy on Thursdays. I keep the receipts in the car just in case. Don't be sloppy like last time. She wasn't talking to Aspen. She was talking to someone else. A woman. That detail lodged in my mind like a nail under the skin. There was more happening here than I thought. This wasn't just infidelity. This was layered, orchestrated. A whole side of her life that she'd built parallel to mine, like we were living in two movies that shared the same set. And then I saw it on her nightstand in one of the clips, a checkbook. Open. Her handwriting. My signature forged next to hers on an envelope. The name on it wasn't one I recognized, but the account number was ours. I shut the laptop, breathed slowly. 1, 2, 3. Something had just shifted again. This wasn't just betrayal of the heart. She'd started siphoning. Lying wasn't enough for her. She was peeling away pieces of my life while I watched Netflix on the couch. I called our bank. Didn't say much. Just asked for a transaction history for the last 90 days. I told them I suspected identity fraud. By the time I got home, she was gone. Aspen was gone too. Her clothes were back in the closet. Bed made. Like nothing had happened. Except on the dining room table there was a single sticky note. Bright pink. Cheap, like something ripped from a grocery list. It said, "You've always been better with distance. Let's keep it that way." No name. No apology. No fight. Just that. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at the kitchen island with the card in one hand and a pen in the other, trying to figure out if this was something I could even explain to someone else. It wasn't just that she cheated. It was that she didn't care if I found out. It was that she wanted me to. The next morning wasn't real. Or maybe it was too real. Couldn't decide. The walls looked the same. The coffee machine still groaned like it always did when I turned it on. But I stood in my own house like a guest who had overstayed his welcome. Her toothbrush was still in the holder. Her jacket still draped over the kitchen chair. And I couldn't touch any of it. Like they were evidence in a crime scene. The bank called me back at 9:12 a.m. The woman on the line was polite. Too polite. Like she'd been trained to keep a voice calm when telling someone their life had been slowly drained from underneath them. She walked me through a list of transactions. Thousands of dollars. Small enough to avoid triggering alerts, but frequent. Hotels. Wire transfers. A down payment. A down payment? I asked. "Yes, sir," she said, typing. "It looks like a holding deposit on a property. Out of state." I asked for the address. She hesitated. "It's under both your names, so I can't release that without confirmation from both parties." I hung up. It wasn't anger anymore. It was resolve. The kind that makes your jaw clench for hours without realizing. She was building a second life. A whole exit plan. Using my name, my money, and not bothering to hide the trail. She thought I'd never look. She thought I was that stupid. So I drove. Not to her job. She'd been on leave for weeks claiming burnout. Not to her sisters. She hadn't spoken to her since that fight over the will. I drove to the condo her aunt used to own in Fort Collins. The one she always said she hated visiting. Something in my gut told me to check. I didn't even know if it had been sold. I just remembered the address because she used to complain about the paint color. When I got there, a white Lexus was parked in the space labeled 2B. Her old license plate. I parked across the street, waited, watched. 3 hours. Then someone came out. Not her. The woman from the video call. The voice on the nanny cam. She walked out with a small dog in a leopard print harness and looked both ways like she was expecting someone to be watching. But she wasn't expecting me. I followed her. Not far, just around the block. She lit a cigarette behind the 7-Eleven and called someone. I didn't have to get close. She was loud, confident. "Yes, he's clueless. He found the SD card, yeah, but he hasn't done anything yet." "No," she said, "he just walked out. Like a puppy. She's handling it." Then laughter. That same bitter kind of laughter that made my stomach twist. She flicked her cigarette and walked back toward the building. I moved before she saw me. Back in the car. Heart pounding for the first time in 2 days. This wasn't just betrayal. It was a setup. They were playing a game and I was the mark. Not just for cheating, but for something bigger. Something that involved my accounts, my identity, maybe even legal trouble I hadn't seen coming yet. I didn't go home. I booked a motel under a fake name. I brought the SD card, my laptop, and a notebook. I wrote everything down. Dates, faces, amounts, every detail I could remember, every tiny moment I'd brushed off before. I was building a timeline. I didn't know if I was preparing for war or court, but I was preparing. The betrayal had layers, and I was about to start peeling them back that I didn't sleep. Couldn't. My mind was a swarm, Images, sounds, words she said 6 months ago that now meant something entirely different. Every moment we shared was being rewritten in real time. That anniversary trip where she insisted on separate spa treatments? She wasn't at a spa. That sudden push for a joint savings account after her work bonus? It wasn't a bonus. It was fuel. By dawn, I had something resembling a case. Not just an emotional wreckage, but a pattern. There were 5 names on the wire transfers. 2 of them matched the surnames of businesses that didn't exist on Google. One address bounced back to a mailbox center in Nevada. Another matched the lease record for a luxury apartment under her maiden name. The details were meticulous. And then there was him, Aspen. He wasn't in any public directory. No LinkedIn, no social media, not even a traceable phone number. Like he was a ghost that only came alive when she called him. But the woman, the one from the video, her I found. Her name was Clara Penn, a registered notary, once connected to a boutique real estate firm that folded during the pandemic. Her license was still active. That meant she was still out there, involved in deals, paperwork, witnessing signatures. And now she was laughing behind 7-Eleven like this was some kind of sitcom. I drove to the address on her business listing. A converted garage space pretending to be an office. Empty. Locked. But the mailbox was stuffed full flyers. A pink envelope from a bank, and a folded paper with my name on it. I stared at it for a long time before pulling it out. No stamp. Just a note. Handwritten in sharp, controlled script. You're moving faster than we thought. Let's see if you're smart enough to stop now. I read it twice. Then I burned it in the parking lot with a lighter from my glove box. Whatever this was, it had teeth. And now they knew I was biting back. I went to the only person I knew wouldn't fold, my friend Nate. We've known each other since middle school. Both served 2 years in Colorado Guard. And he owed me one for helping him cover up his post-divorce drinking phase. He worked in data security now. Ran his own little cyber vault out of a nondescript building with no signage and 2 security cameras pointed at the same door. He let me in without a word. Just raised an eyebrow and opened his laptop. I need everything you can pull on these 2, I told him. Sliding him names, partial emails, transaction details, the SD card. He didn't ask questions. That's why I trusted him. While he worked, I watched the feed from his monitors, scripts running, windows flashing open and closed. I'd seen this before, but never like this. Never when it mattered to me. After 20 minutes, Nate leaned back and exhaled through his teeth. Okay, so, bad news, you're not just dealing with cheaters. You're dealing with opportunists. The woman, Clara, has 3 LLCs in her name, all shells. The man goes by different aliases. Aspen's just one of them. In Idaho, he's Caleb. In Texas, he's Roan. He's been flagged before for financial targeting. Nothing stuck. And her? I asked. She's smart, Nate said. And dangerous. Knows how to stay barely legal. Your wife? She's the link. All the paper trails converge on her signature. I leaned over his shoulder. The screen showed a diagram, names in boxes, red lines connecting accounts, transactions, emails. My name right in the center. They're setting me up for something, I muttered. Or already did. Nate looked at me. They're not done. That's what worries me. I drove back to the motel with my head spinning. This wasn't about a broken marriage anymore. This was fraud, identity theft, and maybe something even uglier. But worst of all, she was doing it with a smirk. And I was still playing catch-up. I returned to the house just after 11 p.m. The porch light was on. An eerie little detail, like she was expecting me to walk in like nothing had happened. The kind of manipulation that hides in the ordinary. That light used to mean home. Now it looked staged like a trap. But I went in anyway. She was there, sitting at the dining table, hair tied up, wearing one of those oversized sweaters she used to borrow from me and never give back. Except now it looked like camouflage, a uniform to play the role of the confused wife. The table was set. 1 wine glass, 1 plate, candle half burned down. There was no food, just the performance. She'd laid the stage like she knew this scene would come. You've been busy, she said, not looking up. I walked in slowly, not sitting, just watching. You left a note, I said. That's not usually your style. She finally looked at me, eyes calm, calculating, like she was watching a chessboard and waiting to see if I'd even noticed how close I was to checkmate. Better than leaving with screaming and broken dishes, she said. I didn't respond. I took the SD card from my coat pocket and placed it on the table between us. You know what this is, I said. She didn't blink. Just picked it up, examined it like a paperclip, then smiled. So you finally looked. I saw enough. That's good, she said. I was getting tired of pretending, and there it was. No excuses, no apologies. Just the audacity of someone who'd rehearsed this reveal so many times it had become dull for her. You planned this? I asked. From the start. She tilted her head. Not from the start, but somewhere along the way, yes. You made it easy. I laughed once. Sharp, bitter. What? By trusting you? No, she said softly. By needing me more than I needed you. That stung more than anything. She leaned forward now, elbows on the table, voice lower. You don't understand yet. This wasn't just about sleeping around. You were in the way. In the way of what? Freedom, she said. From you. From this. From a life where I pretend I'm fulfilled by your tiny rituals and your bland loyalty. You were predictable and I needed something more. Clara helped me see that. I stared at her. Clara's a con artist. And Aspen, whoever he is a fraud. She smiled wider now. And yet they're the only people who ever told me the truth. I almost couldn't believe it. She didn't even sound angry. She sounded liberated. Like betrayal was some kind of enlightenment she'd reached after years of silence. I pulled out my phone, placed it on the table. The screen lit up, recording. She didn't flinch. You think I care if you record this? She said. Go ahead. Show it to your lawyer. Show it to the police. You don't have the whole picture. You forged my name, I said. You drained our account. She stood up now, pushing the chair back so smoothly it didn't even creak. You think they care about a few $1,000s when I've got texts showing how controlling you were? You think anyone's going to believe the man who couldn't see what was happening right in front of him? And that's when I saw it, her trump card. She wasn't trying to hide anymore. She was going to flip the script. Turn the victim into the villain. And in this twisted play, she'd cast herself as the wounded, manipulated wife. I stood there for a second, watching her, not moving. Then I said, You know what your biggest mistake was? She crossed her arms, like she was already done with me. You assumed I'd stay quiet, I said. You thought I'd disappear, but I've already started. I've got Nate tracing everything. I've got copies of the account statements, the camera footage, the emails. You wanted me out of the way? Now I'm in the middle of everything. She laughed, genuine now. Not the bitter kind. Not sarcastic. A real laugh. You really think this is going to end with you walking away clean? No, I said. I think it's going to end with you walking into court with handcuffs. For the first time, her smile slipped. Not much, just a crack. But it was enough. I'll see you there, she said. Then she walked past me. Upstairs. Silent again. I didn't stop her. I didn't follow. Because she didn't know what I had planned next. The next morning, I made a phone call that marked the point of no return. I called Rachel, the one person from her side of the world who didn't drink the Kool-Aid. Her cousin. They'd grown up together, but drifted apart after a falling out over money a few years back. I remember overhearing that argument at a Christmas dinner. Rachel accused her of being manipulative, and she responded by cutting her out completely. That was the kind of punishment she specialized in. Silent, surgical. Rachel picked up on the second ring. Mike, she said, wary. Why are you calling me? Because I think you've been waiting to hear from me for a while, I replied. And because you know exactly what she's capable of. There was a pause on the line. Then she exhaled. What did she do now? I told her everything. The footage. The money. The aliases. Clara. Aspen. The SD card. The setup. All of it. She didn't interrupt. Just listened. When I finished, there was a silence so dense I thought she'd hung up. Then she said, She tried this before. Not like this, not this elaborate. But close. With a guy in Oregon. She drained his account, made him look unstable, then left with enough leverage to keep him quiet. His name was Jordan. He tried to fight back. She threatened him with claims of harassment, emotional abuse, things no one could disprove. He lost his job over it. Why didn't you tell anyone? I asked. I tried, she said. But she got to everyone first. Made it sound like I was jealous, bitter, out to smear her. She's always been good at that. Something clicked in my mind. This Jordan. Does he still live in Oregon? No. Last I heard, he moved to Arizona. Changed his last name. But he kept files. Emails. Bank records. Screenshots. He sent them to me, in case she came after him again. Can you send them to me? I asked. A pause. Under one condition. When this goes public, when you burn her to the ground, you don't leave my name out of it. I want her to know I helped. Fair enough. By noon, I had Jordan's documents in my inbox. And suddenly, her pattern was undeniable. 2 cases. Same tactics. Same outcome. Only this time, I was one step ahead. I went to the sheriff's office in our county. Not the city police, they were slow and tangled in bureaucracy. The sheriff's department was sharper, leaner. I knew one of the deputies from a community emergency response course I took years ago. He owed me a favor. I laid out everything. The videos, the forged documents, the transfers, Jordan's case, Rachel's affidavit, the timeline. It took 3 hours, but when I left that building, I wasn't just another blindsided husband. I was a complainant in a pending criminal investigation. I didn't go home that night. I stayed at Nate's. Around 9:40 p.m., I got a text from her. Just one line. If you think this ends in a courtroom, you're more naive than I thought. I didn't reply. I opened the cloud folder Nate had set up and uploaded every piece of evidence. He encrypted it with a dead man's switch. If anything happened to me, it would go straight to 2 lawyers and 3 reporters. She wasn't dealing with the version of me she thought she broke. She was dealing with the version that had nothing left to lose. And that version was going to end her. I woke up the next day to a voicemail. Blocked number. No caller ID. The kind of call that makes your stomach twist before you even listen. I played it on speaker while pouring coffee at Nate's place. The message was 23 seconds of silence. Then, faintly, someone breathing. On the last second, a voice, distorted and low. You're playing with fire. No name, no threat. But it didn't need to be one. That wasn't a warning, it was a confession. They knew I was closing in. Nate heard it too. He didn't say anything at first, just pushed a burner phone across the table toward me. I registered it under my nephew's name. You're done using your number. Turn yours off. If they're watching your GPS, you're already exposed. I powered down my phone, watched the screen fade to black and felt a strange satisfaction. Like I just slammed a door on her face from across town. Later that day, Nate cracked something I hadn't even thought to look for. Metadata inside one of the forged lease documents with my signature. Hidden deep inside the PDF was a document history log. And one entry stuck out. Edited by Clara Penn. IP address. Redacted. He traced it back to a co-working space 2 towns over. She'd used a public machine. Clever, but not clever enough. That place had CCTV. Nate confirmed they stored 72 hours of footage. We drove out there that afternoon. Nate wore a ball cap. I kept my hood up. Told the guy at the desk we were tracking an unauthorized transaction from a client. Gave him just enough technical babble to make his eyes glaze over. Footage from Tuesday afternoon, Nate said. 2 to 6 p.m. All stations. Guy hesitated, then shrugged. If you're from her firm, you know how this works. He handed us a drive and returned to his desk. Didn't ask for ID. Didn't care. Probably underpaid. We left fast. In the car, Nate plugged it into his laptop. There she was. Clara. Plain as day. Sitting at Terminal 7. Typing, scanning documents using a USB. Her face turned toward the camera. No disguise. That's enough, I said. That's all I need. But it wasn't. Not really. What I needed was to see her face when she realized this time. She'd overplayed her hand. That night I went back to the house. Not to confront. Not to talk. I just wanted to see what she'd do. I parked a block away. Approached on foot. Quiet. Nate had rigged a tiny surveillance camera under the roof of my neighbor's porch lamp earlier that week. Completely undetectable. It had a live feed. At 10:32 p.m., a black SUV pulled into the driveway. She stepped out. Alone. Wore all black. Hoodie. Gloves. She wasn't just sneaking in. She was breaking in. I watched her from the shadows as she disabled the alarm. She knew the code, of course, and slipped inside. 10 minutes later, She came out with a black duffel bag. Not a purse. A bag full of something she didn't want the cops to see. She walked to the car, opened the trunk, then froze. Head turned. She sensed something. Maybe me. I didn't move. I just watched. She stood there for a full minute, scanning the neighborhood. Then she slammed the trunk shut and peeled off down the street like a thief in the night. By the time I got back to Nate's, the footage was already uploaded. "Want to call the cops?" he asked. "Not yet," I said. "Let her think she got away with it. Let her carry that duffel bag into her next hiding place." "Why?" "Because the longer she runs, the more she'll bury herself. We're not just catching her in the act. We're going to show the world exactly what kind of person she is." I pulled up the sheriff's contact on the burner phone. Tomorrow I'd call him. Tomorrow the gloves would come off. The next morning I made the call. Sheriff's office. Direct line. No front desk nonsense. Deputy Warren picked up. Older guy, gruff voice, sounded like gravel rolling over steel. "I've got footage of her," I said. "Breaking in. Removing evidence." He didn't ask questions. Just told me to bring the footage and meet him in person. No email. No upload link. In person. I drove out with Nate. We handed over the flash drive, gave a brief verbal statement. I saw the moment Warren realized this wasn't just about some rocky divorce. He asked the right questions. "Is she aware you're cooperating?" "She knows I'm not quiet anymore," I said. "That's enough." He watched the footage twice, focused on her posture, her movements, the precision. Then he leaned back in his chair, whistled low. "She's done this before." "Yeah," I said. "She's gotten away with it before." Warren nodded. "Not this time." We signed statements, handed over the backup copies of everything Nate had compiled, bank records, text transcripts, digital footprints, the call logs, even the ghost voicemail from the burner number. I could see it click together in Warren's head like a jigsaw puzzle he didn't know was missing pieces until now. By the time we left the station, I had a case number and a guarantee. "Stay out of her way. We'll bring her in. You don't touch her again." Fine. I didn't need to. She was already unraveling. Later that evening, I got a call from Rachel. "She knows," Rachel said. "Someone tipped her off. She's panicking." "How do you know?" "She showed up at my place, screaming. Said I was colluding with you. She called you a parasite and threatened to make everything public. She's losing it." "Did she say where she was going?" "No, but she was packing. Fast." I hung up and checked Nate's tracker. He'd slipped a cheap magnetic tag on her SUV's undercarriage the night we saw her sneak out with the duffel bag. Pinged her location every few minutes. At 8:47 p.m., the signal was stationary. Abandoned motel on the edge of town. Not the kind of place you stay in unless you're on the run or waiting for a fallout to blow over. We debated going. "I promised Warren I'd stay out of it," I said. Nate raised an eyebrow. "And you're going to honor that now?" He had a point. So we drove out. We parked across the street. Watched from inside the car. Her SUV sat under the flickering parking lot light, hood dusty. Room 19 had its curtains drawn, but the glow of a TV flashed through the fabric. I didn't want to knock. I didn't want to see her face again. I wanted her to stew in that room, terrified, unsure who to trust, waiting for the sirens. She couldn't stop this time. So we waited, just long enough. At 9:12 p.m., 2 unmarked sheriff's vehicles pulled up. Plain clothes, no lights, just business. They knocked, waited, knocked again. Then one reached for the radio on his hip. Room 19 opened, and there she was. Hair tied back, no makeup, hoodie hanging off one shoulder. Eyes tired, mouth tight. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just glared. Like all of this was beneath her. They stepped inside. 10 minutes later, they brought her out. No cuffs. Not yet. But the silence said enough. As they walked her to the car, she turned once. And she saw me, across the street, in the passenger seat, watching. She didn't say anything. She didn't flinch. She just smiled. Not with her mouth, but with her eyes. Like she still had one move left. But she didn't know. Neither did I. Not why it was supposed to be over. She'd been taken in for questioning. Her accounts were under review. Clara had gone silent. Her office cleared out overnight. No response from her known numbers. The entire web of forged documents, fake identities, and siphoned bank transfers was laid out for the sheriff's team like a crime scene made from paper cuts and passwords. But that night, something shifted. I was back at Nate's, exhausted. Not just physically. Soul deep. The kind of tired you feel when the foundation of your life's been eaten hollow from the inside, and all you're left with is the shell of who you used to be. The knock came at 11:56 p.m. 3 slow taps on the door. Nate looked at me. We hadn't ordered food. We hadn't told anyone we were here. I opened the door with caution, half expecting another cop or worse, Clara herself. But it wasn't either. It was a courier. Young kid. Nervous. Wearing a company vest that looked 2 sizes too big. He handed me a manila envelope and mumbled, "Urgent legal correspondence. Sign here." I signed. He left. Inside the envelope was a single folded letter. No return address. No watermark. Just one typed page. And one flash drive taped to it. I read the letter. My knees almost gave out. "To whom it may concern, you've made a critical error. What you have is not evidence. What you have is half a story, edited, filtered, framed for your benefit. There are recordings you haven't seen, conversations you didn't hear, context you never bothered to seek. Enclosed is a drive. Contained within is a single video. We recommend you watch it in full. And when you're done, ask yourself, who really started this? Who pushed first? And who's been holding the knife this entire time?" Nate read it over my shoulder. Neither of us said a word. He plugged the drive into his air-gapped laptop, a machine completely disconnected from the internet. Precautionary. Always. The video loaded. No sound at first. Just a static shot from a phone camera. Parking garage. Nighttime. Dated 4 months ago. Then voices. Her voice. And mine. But not from any memory I could place. It was a recording of a conversation we had, or maybe one I'd been manipulated into having. The words were real, but twisted, edited, restitched out of order to make it sound like I was planning something. Something illegal. Something aggressive. My voice. "If she keeps lying to me, I'll bury her." Cut. Her voice. "You can't threaten me like that." Cut. My voice again. "Don't worry. No one will believe her once it's done." Cut. And then silence. Nate paused the video. Rewound. Played again. "What is this?" I asked, panic creeping up fast now. He tapped a few keys. "This is manipulated. Heavily. I can see the edit points. But if someone less technical watches this, it looks like I'm the threat." My mind raced. I said those things, sure, but not like that. Not in that order. Not with that meaning. It was a conversation about her gaslighting me. About our fights. About feeling like I was drowning in doubt. And now she or someone had sliced it into a confession. "This is her last play," Nate said. "She's framing me," I whispered. And then it hit me. The smile. That final look she gave me from the squad car. It wasn't defeat. It was anticipation. She wanted to be arrested. She wanted the spotlight. Because she knew, buried in some timeline, was this backup plan. She hadn't just covered her tracks. She was turning the whole game around. And I wasn't ready for it. Final note. They always say betrayal hurts because it comes from someone you trust. But that's not quite it. Betrayal hurts because it makes you question if you ever knew yourself at all. If you were blind, or if they were simply better at pretending than you were at seeing. I thought I was building a life. She was building an alibi. So here I am, waiting for the next knock, the subpoena, the fallout. But I've learned one thing. You never really know who someone is until they decide to destroy you. And even then, you only see the mask they want you to see.